Hello, I'm going to try to give you a brief idea of how to put together a floating hydroponic system. I did this for years when I worked for the University of Florida, IFAS, at the North Florida Research and Education Center. They have put a lot of information out. You can go on their virtual field days, look up hydroponics and floating systems, and they'll actually have a couple of different videos, ones with larger systems that are like a 4x8, the size of a insulating styrofoam sheet. And they'll also have one that tells you how you can kind of make into anything that's 6 inches deep, 5-gallon bucket, various different other types of things, any tub that you might have around. We tend to use the styrofoam in a thicker. I found that 1.5 inches is a real good size. It's not flexible. If it goes on equal. It doesn't kind of wave. You get like a 1 inch or less. It gets kind of iffy on it holding. Although when you have a smaller system, a bucket or something else that you can use, like for me a tub, something a little smaller isn't too bad. So by doing that, you're going to set up a system where you're just going to put nutrients in it. And those nutrients are going to amount to some kind of fertilizer that you can make into a liquid. Miracle-Gro, Peters, they're generic brands. They're all pretty much with their majors, the NPK being like 24, 8, 16. And then you want to make sure that it also has macronutrients, boron, zinc, stuff like that. Those things are normally in soil when you're planting, but when you're doing a floating system, fertilizing your plants is not really a big deal. If you have them in pots or with soil. Non-media stuff like perlite or peat, those things need added stuff to them to give them what they would get if you put them in the ground. You're also going to want to have some magnesium sulfate, which is actually Epsom salts. It will give it, it's another thing that is needed for your plants. When you are measuring, let's just say for a gallon of water, you want to use 1 to 2 teaspoons of the fertilizer, and then you want to use 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of the Epsom salts. Now I go ahead and use the full value of 2 teaspoons of the liquid fertilizer to 1 teaspoon per gallon. So that's how I figure out what I'm going to mix. Your next thing is to figure out how many gallons are in the container that you're going to use. I'm going to be using a tub that I have. I have a couple of these. They're black now, looking gray. And I have one that's on a table in the garden where I've leveled the ground, and I've actually taken a leveler to make sure that I have a good even. Here, my husband set this up on blocks, kind of did what he could to make the blocks come out level. And you can see that it's pretty good because you can see the level inside the tub is pretty uniform, so that when you put the styrofoam in there, it will kind of set evenly and float evenly. Next, in the process of making the floating system, I have the nutrient in there. I need to set up the styrofoam. This is 1.5 inches. Again, this is kind of one I like. It's an old piece of styrofoam I've had. I have taken, cut the size out for this tub. You can see I have put in, drilled in with, for me, I am using a 2.5 inch hole saw drill bit, where you can see this will, when you mark it, you put that drill on that, it just takes it in nice and even. So you can put those in. I will say that it does get, the piece gets stuck in there. So I usually take some either ground pin or this ice pick to get that out. Just a little tip to be prepared for that, that they'll go in there. So You want your hole saw. It's 2.5 inches for me because I'm using netted pots. My netted pots are 2 inch at the bottom, but the 2.5 will cause it to go in there nice and snug and fit. This actually works in such a way that this bottom is somewhat recessed when you put it in there, but as it touches the level of the water, it comes up enough just to touch that bottom. And that's what you want. You want that the roots that are at the bottom of the transplant are going to seek that. If you put that too much in, more than 1/8 to 1/4 inch of nutrient is in the bottom of this, it'll be too much. It actually will dampen it off. It'll actually cause it to be too wet too long. So the idea is the transplant that is in the top of this pot will have air come to it. And that's where the plant gets air. When you have it in hydroponics, there has to be a certain amount of roots that are exposed to the air. The rest seek out its nutrients. Now at the center, we would get these netted pots. It was nice working there because I could see things that worked, and then I had set up a nursery, and so I was actually purchasing similar things. I knew certain trays that I liked the most. These were great for the floating systems. You can get them in different sizes. The issue is, depending on what size you're going to use, you've got to cut the hole to fit that. This was nice because it would give the plants and the transplants enough room to have the space around them for the air that they needed while the roots went through. Now, when you're getting ready to put your transplants in, this is in a larger plug, so it's easier. I used to do much smaller, the narrow ones that would go in here, but with the flat bottom, this makes it really very easy to put in. Now, when you put this in, I have seen more than anything else, the thing that tends to kill the plants is when they're put in that liquid too far. It barely needs to touch. If it touches this bottom, it's going to hit those roots, and those roots will now start seeking to go into that nutrient. So you want to make sure that, you know, sometimes it seems like the cup's not there. We go along and see a lettuce a little wilted and know that we have to tap it a little to get it in the solution. And if it looks like it's kind of dying and getting too much water, you have to make sure you pull it up. You just barely need an eighth of an inch or so. So if you're using a styrofoam cup, like one of the little coffee cups, you can cut small holes in the bottom. Again, make sure it doesn't go too deep. You don't want to see a whole layer of liquid there. It just barely needs to be able to get it so the roots can touch it. So once you put your transplants in your cups, and then you stick them in there, tap them, take a look. You know, I actually put them in first, and then I put my transplants in so I can see what's going on. And then I watch it over the next couple of days and make sure everything seems to be leveled right. I mean, if it rains, it's going to lift that styrofoam, so it should stay at the same, you know, position and get just what it needs if you put the cup in there correctly. Now, this is the second floating system I have. The other one has lettuce and watercress. That's what this is, watercress. This one has cilantro and arugula in it. Now, they look a little wimpy. I think that the really cold, freezing weather has slowed them down. But when they get onto this nutrient, well, the liquid will be warmer than the ground. Might get cold, but these are cold weather plants, and they should do really well. Again, you want a container that has at least 6 inches, styrofoam, some form of cups to put your transplants in, nutrient solution along with Epsom salts, and your transplants, of course. So this has been kind of fun to put together. I hope that this works for you if you want to play with it. Again, there's some really good resource information on the IFAS, EDIS reports, and also in the like virtual videos. They're really cool because you'll see how they actually put them together and see how the roots come out the bottom and everything. So maybe we can follow this along as things grow. I'll actually, you know, kind of take some pictures of it as we go along. I'm kind of excited because I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years and have been procrastinating. If you have any questions, contact me. And I hope you all have a really great day.